It is 2:17 in the morning. You have work tomorrow. You are exhausted. You have been lying in the dark for 2 hours trying to fall asleep. But your brain has other plans. It has decided that right now at 2:17 in the morning is the perfect time to replay that conversation from 4 days ago. The one where you said that thing. You know the one. And it has decided to run every possible version of how it could have gone differently. Every alternative ending. Every way the other person might have interpreted it. Every way it might come back to haunt you in a meeting next Thursday. Then, just as that finishes it, pivots to something you have to do in 3 weeks that might go wrong. And then, something that happened in 2019. You are not anxious. You are not mentally ill. You are not weak. Your brain is simply doing something it was designed to do. The problem is, it cannot stop, and nobody ever told you why or how to make it. Overthinking is one of the most universal human experiences, and one of the least understood. Almost everyone does it. Most people hate it. And yet, the standard advice just stop thinking about it, distract yourself, think positive fails virtually everyone who tries it. Not because they lack willpower, because that advice fundamentally misunderstands what overthinking actually is and why the brain does it. In this video, we are going to go beneath the surface. We will look at the neuroscience of rumination, what is happening in the brain when you cannot stop looping, why your brain treats it as helpful even when it is destroying your sleep and your peace, the specific psychological patterns that make it worse, and what actually works to interrupt it. Not what sounds good, what the research shows actually works. Let's get into it. Psychologists call it rumination from the Latin word for what a cow does when it regurgitates and rechews its food. The same content over and over, never fully digested. Rumination is defined as repetitive, passive focus on distress and its possible causes and consequences. It is distinct from problem solving, where you think about a problem in order to resolve it. Rumination circles the problem endlessly without moving toward resolution. The thinking is the destination, not the means to one. And it is extraordinarily common. A landmark study by Susan Nolan-Hoeksema at Yale, who spent over 2 decades researching rumination, found that approximately 73% of adults aged 25 to 35 and 52% of adults over 65 engage in chronic overthinking. It is, statistically, the psychological norm, not the exception. But here is what most people do not know about why it happens. The brain has a default mode network, a set of interconnected regions that activate whenever you are not focused on an external task. When you stop doing something when you lie in bed, sit in traffic, zone out in the shower, this network switches on automatically. And for a significant proportion of people, when the default mode network activates, it does not wander freely. It gravitates toward unresolved threats, past mistakes, future dangers, social evaluations. It becomes a threat-scanning loop. Neuroscientist Marcus Rachel at Washington University, who identified the default mode network in 2001, described it as the brain's resting state. The problem is, for chronic overthinkers, this resting state is anything but restful. Your brain at rest is not switched off. It is running its most anxious program, and it has been doing this every time you stop being busy for years. So what does chronic overthinking actually look like in everyday life? Because it is far more varied than most people realize and far more exhausting. You might recognize it as the post-conversation audit. The moment a social interaction ends a meeting, a date, a phone call with a parent, the mental replay begins. Did I say the right thing? Was I too much? Did they seem off with me toward the end? You analyze tone, timing, and word choice with the precision of a forensic investigator for an interaction that the other person has almost certainly already forgotten. You might recognize it as anticipatory anxiety, not replaying the past, but pre-living the future, running through every possible thing that could go wrong next week, next month, next year, in such detail and with such emotional intensity that your nervous system responds as if these things are happening now. You are not worrying. You are rehearsing catastrophe, and every rehearsal makes the fear feel more real. You might recognize it as decision paralysis, the inability to commit to even small choices, what to order, what to reply, whether to go or stay, because the mind immediately generates so many scenarios, so many possible wrong answers, that choosing anyone feels unbearable. Or you might recognize it in the exhaustion, not physical tiredness, cognitive depletion. The specific, grinding fatigue of a mind that has been working at full capacity all day without producing anything. thinking constantly, deciding nothing, resolving nothing. That exhaustion is not laziness. It is the measurable metabolic cost of a brain that has been running its most energy-intensive process, sustained self-referential thinking, on a loop for hours. You are tired because your brain has been genuinely, physically working. It has just been working on the wrong thing. Here is the part that explains everything, including why overthinking is so extraordinarily difficult to stop. Your brain does not experience rumination as harmful. It experiences it as responsible. Research by psychologist Edward Watkins at the University of Exeter, one of the world's leading researchers on rumination and depression, found that chronic overthinkers consistently report believing that their rumination is useful. That thinking about a problem more, for longer, will eventually produce a solution, a resolution, or at least a sense of control. This is the central trap of overthinking. It masquerades as preparation, as due diligence, as the responsible management of uncertainty. And because it feels productive, because the brain generates a mild sense of engagement while doing it, it is reinforced. You think more. You feel slightly less anxious in the moment. The loop is rewarded, and so it deepens. Here is what the research actually shows. Watkins and colleagues found that abstract, repetitive thinking about problems rumination is not only ineffective at solving them, it actively worsens mood, increases anxiety, and reduces the capacity for creative problem solving. The more you ruminate on a problem, the less capable you become of resolving it. And here is the neuroscience behind why. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational, solution-focused thinking, requires a calm nervous system to function properly. Rumination activates the amygdala, floods the system with low-grade cortisol, and progressively impairs the very cognitive functions you need to actually think clearly. Overthinking is not too much thinking. It is the wrong kind of thinking, activated at the wrong time, that blocks the right kind. And here is the myth it finally destroys, that the solution to overthinking is to think harder, more thoroughly, or more carefully. It is not. It is to think differently, or sometimes to stop thinking entirely and do something with your body instead. Here is the reframe that most people never reach, and it is the one that actually changes the relationship with overthinking, rather than just managing the symptoms. You do not overthink because your brain is faulty. You overthink because your brain is trying to protect you. Every loop, every replay, every catastrophized future scenario, your brain generated it because somewhere in its threat assessment system, it decided that thinking about this thing more might prevent something painful. It is an act of care. Clumsy, exhausting, counterproductive care, but care nonetheless. And here is what that means practically. You cannot bully your way out of overthinking. You cannot shame yourself into stopping. Telling yourself to just stop thinking about it has the same effect as telling yourself not to think of a pink elephant. The harder you push against the loop, the tighter it wins. What actually interrupts it is not force, it is understanding. When you can look at the loop and say, I see what you are trying to do. I see the threat you are guarding against. I understand why you are here. The nervous system receives the one signal it has been trying to generate all along. That you are paying attention. That you are not in danger. That it can rest. The brain does not need to be silenced. It needs to be heard. Here is what actually works. Not what sounds good in theory. What the research consistently shows interrupts the rumination loop. Number 1. Name the loop out loud. When you notice the spiral beginning, say it, literally out loud, or in writing, I am ruminating about X right now. Research by neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman at UCLA found that labeling an emotional or mental state affect labeling measurably reduces activity in the amygdala and restores prefrontal function. Naming the loop does not just describe it, it physiologically weakens it. You are not talking to yourself. You are deactivating a threat response. Number 2. Give it a scheduled time. This sounds counterintuitive, but it works. Set aside 15 minutes each day as your designated worry time. When a ruminative thought arrives outside that window, tell yourself, I will think about this at 6 p.m. Research by psychologist Graham Davey at the University of Sussex shows this reduces the frequency and intensity of intrusive thoughts across the rest of the day. You are not suppressing the thought, you are postponing it, which the brain accepts in a way that suppression never allows. Number 3. Move your body before you try to manage your mind. Every major study on rumination interruption identifies physical movement as the single most reliably effective tool. Not because exercise releases endorphins, though it does. But because rhythmic physical movement, walking, running, anything bilateral and repetitive, activates the parasympathetic nervous system and manually reduces the cortisol that sustains the loop. You cannot think your way out of a state that was not created by thinking. You have to move out of it first. Your brain is not working against you. It is working for you in the only way it knows how, with the only tools it was ever given. The goal is not to silence it. The goal is to give it better tools. To teach it that not every uncertainty is a threat. That not every unresolved thing needs to be resolved tonight. That you can carry uncertainty without it carrying you. That is not something that happens overnight. But it starts with understanding why the loop exists, and this video was that start. Now I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me, what time does your overthinking tend to hit hardest? Is it 2 a.m. in bed? Is it in the shower? Is it the moment a conversation ends? Just tell me when, because I guarantee that wherever you say, someone else in the comments will reply and say, same, and sometimes that is the only thing that helps. Subscribe, and next week we are going into the psychology of self-sabotage, why you destroy good things the moment they arrive, why success feels dangerous, and why the person most likely to ruin your life is the one looking back at you in the mirror. See you then.